Welcome to the second webinar on Ruby on Rails course from jpassion.com. So the topic we are going to cover is Ruby Basics 2. So we are going to have two more Ruby language sessions. Next week we are going to cover Ruby blocks and closures, and the following week we are going to cover Ruby meta programming, and then the rest of the course we are going to spend time learning Rails. Okay, so let's move on to the presentation. So, Ruby Language Basics 2. So what we are going to cover today is definition and invocation of methods, and we are going to spend time learning the concept of modules and some control structures, exception handling, and Ruby operators and regular expression. So method basics. So the way we are going to define a Ruby method is using def keyword. So you say def, the name of the method, in this case my method 1, and then set of arguments, and then inside your method you can have your statements. You don't have to have a parenthesis for your arguments because Ruby knows that these are arguments. So right after def, it knows that this is the name of the method, and the rest of it are the arguments. So you don't have to have parentheses. The concept of class method versus instance method is not that much different from Java. So in Ruby, you can define your class method by having self dot. So any method that starts with a self dot, that means that's a class method. And any method that doesn't start with a self dot is instance method. So the way that you are going to invoke your class method is just like in Java. You specify your name of the class and then dot name of your class method. So in this case, the name of the class method is find everybody. So you're going to say my class dot find underscore everybody. On the other hand, for invocation of instance method, you're going to just specify the name of the method with an object. Okay, so rest of it we are going to assume that we are typically invoke instance method. So the way that you're going to invoke both class method and instance method is specifying the name of the method and set of parameters. Now, the parentheses can be omitted in invocation as well. So this is method name and the set of parameters. So in this case, you don't have to have parentheses. And of course, if you don't have any parameters, you don't need to have parentheses either. So in Ruby and Rails coding, you probably see most of the codes do not in fact use parentheses. So you're gonna see most of these examples. However, if we are going to use the result of the method invocation and then call another method immediately, in this case, suppose method name getting the parameter 1 and parameter 2 return some kind of array, for example, and then if you want to use reverse method of the array class, then in this case you have to have a parenthesis. Okay? So the compiler will let you know whether this is okay or not, so you don't really have to worry about that much. Return value of a method. So in Ruby you don't have to have a return statement, even though you could. So if you don't have any return statement, the last expression will be evaluated and that will be returned. So in this case, when you invoke add method, the x plus y, that's the last statement, that will be evaluated and the value of that x plus y will be returned. You could have a return statement explicitly, just like in Java. So an explicit return statement can also be used to return from function with a value prior to the end of the function declaration. So if you don't have a return statement, the last statement will be evaluated and that will be returned. However, if you want to actually change that control, so this is probably not the good example. Suppose there is another statement after this line, that will not be evaluated and returned. Instead, this will be returned because you have return statement explicitly right here. So this could be useful when you want to terminate a loop or return from a function as a result of some conditional expression. So just like in Java. Alright, so let's do our first exercise. So I'm going to go to the lab documentation. So here, method can be chained. So in this case, suppose if you have an array, so I'm going to just open chaining, and let's run this one first, and this is the result. So in this case, array has unique method and it also has a sort method. So in this case, we are going to call unique method of array, and then we are going to call the sort method. So because this one returns array object, you can actually call sort method again. And same thing here, you can also actually call reverse. And so you can actually call reverse as well, because as long as the result of invocation of previous method returns an object whose class contains a method that you can chain, then it should all work fine. Okay, so method can be chained. Alright, so that's not that much different from Java. So in this case, if you say array method and define reverse, you can see it does in fact have a reverse method. So here, so you can certainly try these things. Okay, so let me just try this one. So this is ILB. Oh, by the way, last week I tried to see whether string class or class has a public method defined, right? So string class doesn't have it, okay? But the string classes class, which is a class, okay? So this one has it, okay? So you can say string.class, and that returns a class object, and then we chain public method defined, and to see whether this, the class has in fact public method defined, and the string class in fact returns this class object. Okay. Now we can see whether, so the one we want to see is whether array class, so this is array class, and method defined question and reverse. It should return true because array class has a reverse method. Okay. You can say put array and method, the sort. Again, we are chaining the result of calling methods method of array class, and then we are chaining with the sort method. So in this case, we get the sorted list of the array classes method. All right. The next exercise is calling class method versus the instance method. So here we have my class method, which is defined as a class method, and then we have instance method. So in order to invoke a class method, we are going to specify person dot and the name of the class method. In this case, we create a person object first to call the instance method. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so it all works fine. Okay, so now if you try to call, for example, the my class method as an object, let's see whether that works. So we're going to say person.my class method. Okay, and see whether that works. So in this case, my class method, oh yeah, it failed. Okay, so when you have exact code 1, that means it actually failed. Okay. So let's just change this code. Moving forward, so that's not that much different from Java, as I said before. Method argument. So here we define a method. So I'm going to just arguments. Okay, so let's run this guy. Control D. So here we define instant method that takes the arguments, and here we use the parenthesis. Here we did not use a parenthesis, And you can also actually have a variable number of arguments by having star like this. Okay, so we're going to talk about this one later on one more time. So it's just to show you that the arguments do not have to be parenthesized. Okay. All right. The next one is, all right, so this is kind of important, again, that parentheses can be omitted in method invocation. So let's try the parentheses. This code. Let's run this one. It all works as expected. Okay. So I'm going to use the documentation because it kind of highlighted it. So we define a method here, okay, with a variable number of arguments with a star. And we pass the 3 arguments using parentheses. Okay? As I said before, when you are invoking, or even in definition, you don't have a parenthesis, so this one should work as well. So here we did not have any parentheses. Again, this is typically the way that you are going to see Ruby and Rails code without any parentheses. Okay? Now, another important aspect is hash. When you can certainly pass a hash as an argument. So this is a hash, right? Okay. All right, so here we can pass a hash as an argument. Now, when you have your hash as a last argument, you don't have to have this bracket here, brace here for your hash. So this one is the same thing as this. Okay, meaning you don't have to have a brace for your hash as long as that hash is your last argument. Okay, so again, you probably have seen code in Rails like this. Okay, so no parentheses and no brace. Okay, because the hash is the last argument. Okay, this example we're going to talk about blocks later on because block is a very important concept in Ruby. Now, when you can pass a block as an argument. Block is, by the way, a chunk of code. Okay. So if the block is attached, you have to have either parentheses for your arguments, or you have to have the brace for hash. Okay. So this now, if you in this case, if you don't have either this parentheses or brace, and it's going to be a compile error. Okay. So in this case, let me just uncomment this line, and if you save it, and then you can see it failed. Okay. All right. So again, don't worry about this. We're going to actually talk about the blocks in detail in another session. Okay. This is a case that we define another method. Okay. So here, this is a case that we are calling a method immediately. Okay. So here, it returns. Let's run this guy. It returns 1 and 2. Which is we pass 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and then we actually sort it. Okay, so that this is actually the same result if you say sorted and reverse, and then it's going to have 1 2 and 2 1 instead of 1 2. Okay, all right. Now this one, as I said before, if you're calling a method against the result of calling that method, then you have to have a parenthesis. So if I uncomment this guy and then run it, you got the exit code 1, okay, which means that this one failed. Okay, all right, moving forward. Okay, so let's move on to the next. By the way, I'm going to take questions at the end of the presentation. Arguments. Yeah, we have already seen examples of passing arguments. Okay. So the default, you can have a default value for your argument. So in this case, we define a sum method, and then we are passing 2 arguments. One is called the value, and the other one is called the array. And both of these arguments has a default value. So value of value argument is default, and the second the argument is array. So we are actually passing empty array. Okay, and then we basically display this value argument, and then we also display the length of this array. So if we call this method by passing just one argument, in this case something, then this something will be displayed by this line because we passed the explicit value, so default will not be taken. However, we did not pass any specific value or explicit value for the second argument. In that case, this default, the value, which is the empty array, will be used. So the length is supposed to be 0. Okay, so this shows how to set the default values for your arguments. As we have seen in example, the variable length argument list. So if you use the star for your last argument, that means that's a variable number of arguments. So whatever you passed here will be captured as an array. Okay. So in this case, we define a calculate value method and xy argument, and then we use a star and other values. So if I call this method with 1 and 2, then the x will be set with 1 and y will be set to 2, and the rest of the argument will be captured as an array. Okay, so when you display these other values, it will display as an array object. Okay, so as I said before, this is something. This is another example here. Suppose if you have an array, and then if you actually star array, that will be also actually captured as so it's just like you're passing like this. Okay, so this is in a bit of reverse. Okay, so this is the same thing as this. Okay. Okay, hash argument. As I said before, hash argument. Yeah, I kind of emphasized it in the hands-on lab. So we are going to actually go over this one more time. So you can certainly pass and hash as an argument. Okay, so we define a method called the accept hash, and then this is the name of the argument, and then we just kind of inspect that argument. Okay, by calling inspect method. So here we are passing and hash as an argument. Okay, so this is argument 1 and argument 2 as a keys, argument 1 and argument n as a keys, and these are the values of those keys. Okay. So when you actually print this out, it will just display like this by this statement. Okay. So the reason that you want to pass your argument as in the form of hash is that hash gives you a best of both worlds in terms of name parameters and the variable argument length. Okay, so you don't have to change this code. You can change the value that you are passing as an argument, and that is hash. So hash you can have as many the key